I didn't even want to work there. I think if I just want an interview because I'm like, I don't really want this job. So I was very relaxed. I guess they loved me. They gave me a very, very good job offer. This was before COVID when I got the job offer. I was even watching my car at work. They called me, like, hey, Kenneth, this is DTCC. We want to offer you a job. I'm like, oh, thanks. Honestly, I'm like, I don't want this
What?
job. I really did. I was like, I really don't want you guys to give me an offer. But then they tell me how much money I'd be making. I'm like, hold up. I'm like, say again? I was like, what? Because that
How
was
much was
like,
it?
it was 75K.
Okay. First job out of college,
Um,
75K.
yeah, it's before COVID, and before everything went insanely expensive.
Okay.
So that was like 25K more than I expected. But they said I would have to move to Dallas eventually. And
Okay.
I'm like, how much money again? I'm like, that's fine. I don't care. As long as they pay for my move, which they did. My parents, they cried so much.
What? They were crying?
They, yeah, cause so I'm the baby in the family, right? So for me
Same here.
moving like 9 states over, they thought I was gonna get a
Oh.
job at Publix. So in their mind, Kansas is gonna like live in Lakeland, like 10 miles away from them. And I tell them, oh, I'm gonna move away to Dallas. Like they freaked out. They started crying so much. I've never seen my dad cry that much.
Welcome back to the Custom Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Baines. This show is all about helping you all have a successful STEM career. And today we're going to be discussing cybersecurity careers and how you can become a cybersecurity professional. Very excited to be interviewing Kenneth Ellington. He's been on the fast track throughout his career. So he's going to kind of give you guys some behind the scenes looks in terms of how to navigate the career process, and then also talk to you guys about his new academy that he started to help those of you who are looking to begin your own cybersecurity career. Kenneth is actually a senior cybersecurity consultant at EY or Ernst & Young, and he also has the Ellington Cyber Academy, ECA for short. So very excited to have Kenneth on. Ken, how's it going, man? I'm so glad to have you on the show. How you doing this afternoon?
It's been pretty good so far. Just got back from vacation from San Diego, so doing pretty well.
Okay, nice. San Diego, so I know it's nice weather. Did you get a chance to drive up to Anaheim by chance and kind of check out Disneyland or do anything else like that?
We drove up. Well, I drove up to Chinatown. So I was in downtown LA and Inglewood, I believe. So I went to Venice Beach later on as well.
Okay.
Super awesome weather. I get why people want to live there. It's just god awful expensive.
All right. Well, yeah, you probably what's the gas out there? Maybe like $5 or something like that.
It was
Crazy.
like $6, I think.
Yeah, and you're in the DFW area, right?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. So we're like 290 in Houston, maybe $3 in Houston right now. So
yeah, same for Dallas. So it was like
six
double the
dollars
price.
is wild. Okay, well, good stuff, man. Well, I'm glad you made it back safely. I'm glad you got a chance to have a vacation and recharge and everything like that. But really excited to have you on the show. And I know I kind of introduced you as a cybersecurity senior cybersecurity consultant for EY. For people that don't have a strong background in cybersecurity, what exactly does that mean? Like, what do you do in your current day job at EY?
So my day-to-day job, I am a SIM and SOAR consultant. So I specialize in different SIM and SOAR technologies, and SIM stands for Security Information Event Monitoring Systems. So think of technology stacks such as Splunk Enterprise Security, Microsoft Sentinel, things of that nature. I normally specialize in. I build solutions around that for my clients. So that's what I do for my day job.
Okay. And then I got to let you plug the Academy, ECA, as well. We'll definitely take a deep dive into it throughout the interview, but just so people can kind of know like ECA and what that is, what exactly is it?
So we're a training and coaching company. We specialize in training cybersecurity professionals to try to upskill themselves in their careers. So we do hands-on training programs and mentoring and career guidance. We do it for businesses and we do it for individual people as well. So if you're an individual that's a cybersecurity analyst, once you get to work at senior analyst level or senior security engineer, we teach you in different technology stacks such as Splunk or Splunk Enterprise Security or XSOAR or Splunk Phantom. We develop hands-on training programs so you're able to reach your career goals.
Okay. Good stuff, man. I'm glad they have a resource like you. And I know you have a teaching background. You were an adjunct professor at the University of Houston. So it seems like a natural progression that you've made there. So I'm glad you're providing those resources to folks. Before we get into the ECA stuff, I definitely want to, learn more about your day job and kind of talk about even some of the latest events that are kind of going on. It seems like at least once a month there's some new cyber attack that's kind of taking place. I know there was one with the MGM Resort, and I think also one with like Air Canada. What's kind of taking place like with all these different cybersecurity events and things like that are kind of happening? I know they're kind of like a ransom attack, where it's like, hey, they're maybe restricting some of the data or access to data, and then requiring some kind of ransom to be paid before they'll actually like release the data. But you're the expert in the cybersecurity space, so I'm interested to hear from you what's kind of taking place there.
Yeah, there's been various attacks over the past couple of months. I know Clorox had one. I know MGM Grand had one, which was a big one. So MGM Grand through the attacks because they didn't pay the ransom right. So they ultimately had to pay throughout the various costs, right? The consultants, systems being down, I think $100 million, which sounds like a lot, but granted, I think the revenue last year was like $36 billion, right? So they only lost one day's worth of revenue. Um,
Okay.
so a lot of times, a lot of times what will happen is with these companies, they won't have the proper defense in depth, which means just layered security, right? So think of it like building a house, right, or a building. You might have a gate, you might have a fence, you might have a security guard, right? You might have man traps, you might have cameras, right? You just don't want to have one of those things, right? You want to have multiple layers of security, so if one security layer fails, there's another one to actually stop the attack from happening, right? Um, because the way I like to teach it and explain it to people is if your systems are designed to where if one layer of security fails and your system can get completely compromised, you have a fundamentally flawed system. So, in my opinion, that's kind of what happened with MGM Graham. In my assessment of it, I believe one of their users got vished. So, someone took the information from one of the social media sites, pretended to be them, asked and called help desk. Hey, my computer is locked. Can you unlock my password and give me my information back? I don't believe help desk verified who they were. The attackers got the information, and then they got into the network, and then started to pivot from there. So multiple layers failed in that area. People like to blame the user and say they're the weakest link, which a lot of times they are, but saying that doesn't build that proper relationship with our team, right? You want the security users, and you want the actual end users to be collaborative and have a proper relationship together. So they will actually take your advice very seriously.
I appreciate you breaking it down like so simply and giving the analogy of like the home, like the home security system and things like that. Definitely makes a lot of sense. Like you got ADT, you got locks on your doors. Um, some people may have weapons inside their house, all that. So it's like all those different things that, they kind of factor into it when they're, taking security into consideration. And it's crazy that like something as simple as like a phishing attack is something that, could result in like this $100 million loss or ransom having to be paid. Just as simple as like an email, that's interesting to me. Why do you think like these companies, how much did you say their revenue was? Like 36 billion or
Yeah.
300? Okay. So like $36 billion, like why are they not like investing in more in cybersecurity? Is it like a lack of knowledge, or is it like, hey, it's not as serious because nothing has happened yet? Like, why do you think it is that companies don't always make that investment?
So a lot of times they'll make the investment, the money and the allocation for it just won't be properly spent, right? So I can build $100 million house, right? But if I spend everything for the backyard and pool system, right, and everything around it, and then the house is just bare bones, right? It's not smart allocation of money. So a lot of times that may be the case, right? Systems may not be configured properly. People maybe won't be trained properly, which will lead to attacks like this happening. And ultimately, they never paid the ransom. So what they did was they said, "Hey, our system should be fine. We'll pay whatever fee we have to actually get our systems up and running, right?" And they'll take that loss because again, they only lost one day's worth of revenue basically. So it's kind of chump
Okay.
change for them. So that's normally how it happens sometimes. I know Caesar's Palace, which is one of their subsidiaries, I believe, paid the ransom and they got their systems back up and running ultimately really quickly. Now, granted, that sounds all nice and dandy, right? But remember, if you pay off the ransom, the attackers are more incentivized to attack you again, right? Because they got paid out. For them, the attackers, it's ultimately a business, right? They're trying to make money off this as well. So if they know if they attack somebody and they'll get paid out, right, for their ransom, they're more likely to try to attack you again. Um, so firms keep that in mind as well. That's why they have insurance policies.
Gotcha. Hey, so quick follow up question to that. Like, with the ransom, what if they have access to like all this private data, like on their customers? Like if they have their credit card information, even like their social security information in some cases. Like I think one of the credit bureaus got hacked or something at one point. Like, is it,
Experian,
is it
yeah.
The rules, I'm assuming the rules change a little bit on like how you handle the ransom based on like what access to data that the hackers have. Is that kind of how it works, or how do you kind of play that out?
If attackers get personal PII information, personal identifiable information, you have to report it towards the SEC as well. So the SEC can alert the users, and they actually know. So if that happens, a lot of times those companies, I think MGM and Graham did it as well. Though they will pay for identity protection and reporting for everyone that got hacked, which I think they did as well for their guests since that happened. 'Cause I think the information was actually stolen from it. So the ransom people are APT groups, which means advanced persistent threat groups. A lot of times, even if you pay the ransom, they'll still take part of your data away, which I think is what they did as well. So it's always you just have to be extra careful about it.
Okay. Hey man, well I appreciate you breaking it down. Is this some of the stuff that you do as well, like during your day job?
I personally don't do that. That'll be the incident response team, which I work with sometimes, but I myself don't handle that. So what MGM and Grad did specifically is they hired a consulting firm that specializes in incident response, responding towards incidents and situations like this. And they basically paid to help their team get the situation under control.
In your day job, you said you're a SIM and SOAR specialist.
Yes.
Like, what does that mean? I guess for the typical somebody with a non-cyber background.
So think of all your endpoint devices. So think of your router, your laptop, your PC, maybe an IoT device, right? Which would be your car, a fridge, a phone. Those devices all generate data, right? And attackers can get inside of it and cause havoc on your systems, right? So what my platform does is it will ingest all that data, right? And allow you to see what's happening in real time on your systems. From there, you're able to actually build detection rules on it to actually detect what is happening. So you're able to respond towards your threats in a much more quick and efficient manner.
How long have you been doing this for? I know we're gonna in a minute. I want to kind of dig into like how you got into cyber, but how long have you been a cybersecurity professional?
I've been in IT and cyber for the past around 5 years, since 2018, 2019.
Well, 5 years before that. So you're in Dallas Fort Worth. Before that, you were in Florida, right?
Yes.
Okay. I kind of got a hint from like I saw one of your interviews,
Bucks,
but then
a Bucks
unfortunately,
t-shirt.
I was gonna say you had something on. It's a piece of dirt on your hoodie right there in the front. It's kind of red. You might want to wipe that off, But it's coming from a Cowboys fan. But no, I did see the Buccaneers
Oh,
the gear, and I was Ken, don't do this, man. We off to a good start, but no, man. So I figured you were from Florida. So like, how did this progression? So you went to? Did you go to? Where'd you go to school at?
USF, University of South Florida.
Okay, cool. And while you were there, what were you studying, or like, how did you kind of get into cybersecurity?
So my undergrad was in MIS and cybersecurity for my concentration. Initially, my undergrad was business management, but I made a pivot once I decided to do IT and cybersecurity, which is why it took me a year longer to actually graduate. I switched twice.
What inspired you to even like consider like management information systems, cybersecurity? Was it like something growing up as a child, or somebody like a counselor kind of advised you to like consider this, or what was it?
It was actually my father. So my dad's actually a software engineer. He's been for the past 27 years. I actually left the Navy. So he's the one that kind of pushed me and my brother to go inside the tech path. Initially, though, I didn't want to do it. 'Cause I thought programming was the absolute lamest thing ever. Like typing the keyboard all day, making money sounds like really stupid to me when I first heard it. But this is like back in middle school. He made me do like a
Okay.
code academy boot camp, and that's what I told him. Like, this doesn't make any sense, Dad. Why would I ever want to do this? So I didn't do it. I did business management as my undergrad. It wasn't until my junior year at USF after I transferred from HEC, which is my local community college. I wanted a way to kind of specialize more to have better job prospects when I graduate. So I asked my pops, I'm like, hey dad, what should I specialize in? He's like, how about IT, Kenneth? I'm like, that's a great idea. So that's kind of what I did. That's kind of how I got down the IT and cybersecurity path.
Okay, man, I'm glad that you didn't, resist your dad the second time around when he made the recommendation. Um, but it's good that you still kind of made your way into tech. And I know I was watching one interview. You were working at Publix at one point, right? Was that during college, or like how did
Yes.
that happen? Where you were like working at Publix and then you kind of transitioned into even landing a tech role at Publix at one point?
So one of the things I tell my students is to always let people know what your true desires are, so they're able to speak on your behalf when you're not inside the room, and that's what I did. So Because I grew up in Tampa, Florida, right, and specifically on the outskirts of Tampa, and Publix's global headquarters was like 15 miles away from where I lived. So one of the lead managers and directors for Publix for cybersecurity well, just happened to come to my store one day, right? And my manager knew that he was coming, and she knew that I wanted to do cybersecurity and IT. And so she asked me, she's like, "Hey, Kenneth, do you want to meet one of the directors of cybersecurity for Publix? I know you're interested in doing cybersecurity." I'm like, "Yes, of course." So she set up the meeting between me and him. 2 weeks later, his name was Rick Rampolla, or his name is Rick Rampolla. He sat me down, we talked, and he told me, he's like, "Kenneth, it's like, I really like your attitude and what you're about. I want you to join our cybersecurity team for our next internship next summer." Because it was already that summer. It was the summer of 2018. Honestly, I didn't realize Public did cybersecurity. I thought we sold groceries, so it's a big shock towards me that we had that large of a program. But he sat me down and he gave me step-by-step instructions he wanted me to do. He said if I could do that, he can almost guarantee me a spot on his internship team next year. I told him I would do it. It will basically study for some certification, go to some conferences and do some courses, meet some different people, and shadow his team. I did everything on the list. Fast forward 9 months, I interview with the team, I get the job. That's how I kind of got my first cybersecurity job.
Nice. No, I think it's a great story because I think it really shows like what you already hit on. You know, you got to let people know what you're doing because there's some people that you come across that actually genuinely want to help you. And like they're not going to be able to connect the dots between you and the opportunity you're seeking if they don't know like what you're actually seeking or going after. And so if you never told your manager like, hey, I'm interested in going into cybersecurity, you may
It would
have
happen.
just yeah, it never would have happened. You would have just been back there, I don't know, working in deli, making sandwiches or whatever, trying to land that first internship or, you know, bagging groceries or whatever you were doing at the time. So I think that's great that you took that initiative and everything. I think that was a brilliant move. So 2018 or 2019, you kind of land your first internship in cybersecurity. Fast forward to now, like 2023, man, that's like 4 years. That's amazing, like the amount of growth in such a short time period. What would you say has kind of been some of the things that have kind of helped you make that like be on the fast track from going to like getting your first internship in 2018 to now in 2023, you're a senior cybersecurity consultant at Ernst& Young?
I'd say the biggest thing is having the right support group around you because it can be hard, right? Trying to get inside cybersecurity. That's how people, it took me years to get inside of it, right? So it's not magic. And you are who you spend your majority of your time with, right? So if your friends and family are very negative and they don't believe in your goals and tell you not to do it, then it probably won't happen a lot of the times, right? So pick people that truly care about you, regardless if it benefits them or not. Surround yourself with them, trust them, build that network, build that collaboration, and you'll be in a pretty good spot. Another thing is don't lie to yourself, right? If you know you have a weakness, be honest with yourself, try to evaluate it. The way I've always looked at it is I like to minimize my weaknesses and accentuate my strengths, right? So if I'm good in one area, I try to focus on that. And if I'm bad in one area, I surround myself with people that are good in that area to limit that ability to try to negatively hurt me. So there's a couple of things I've tried to do throughout my career, and it's worked pretty well so far.
And to kind of piggyback off that networking point, you mentioned like when you were talking to the cybersecurity professional at Publix, they mentioned like they said, hey, prepare for this certification. I think you mentioned like, hey, go to this conference or check out this conference. Was that one of the things as well on
Yeah,
the
it was
list?
B-side. Yeah, B-side Tampa.
Okay. So like that networking component obviously is so important. I think a lot of times people just focus on like the hard skills, right? Like whatever, if it's like learning a coding language or learning formulas or whatever the case may be, or protocols or whatever the case is. But they kind of ignore like this, I guess you can call them core skills or the people skills that are so important with the role or finding the right people to connect with. What are some of those different like opportunities or meetups or groups or conferences that people should take advantage of if they're trying to build that circle of people around them that are in the same field, maybe a step or two above ahead of them, or whatever, and you're just trying to surround themselves by the right people in the cybersecurity space.
So for people that look like us, Andrew, I would say join Blacks in Cybersecurity. They're networking and they're a cybersecurity meetup group that promote people of color in cybersecurity because there's not a lot of us in this field. So trying to bridge that gap is a super important mission of mine. And I joined them basically when I was in college, and I've been with them ever since. So having that proper support group of people that actually look like you and understand what your trials and tribulations are going through is a really good boost and big plus, I would say. There's other networking groups as well, wherever you come from or wherever you believe in, right? So just try to find somebody or someone that gets you right. It makes it a lot easier in the long run. I would say that going to different conferences as well. So there's a B sides in most mid-sized to large cities. I know that there's a B sides Dallas, there's a B sides Houston. The first B sides I went to was B sides Tampa. That's local towards my area where I grew up. So I went there and met a lot of cool people from a lot of different cool companies that helped me to come out of my shell and actually talk to people. Because naturally, I'm a very introverted person. So I put myself out there when I first started. Was very, very hard. My hands would get sweaty. I'd freak out. I don't want to say anything or sound stupid. Um, but I tell people the worst thing that's going to happen to you, people will just ignore you. I mean, that's the worst thing. No one's going to punch you in the face. No one's going to beat you up. They're just going to say, I don't want to talk to you or don't say anything at all. So that's, that's most time the worst thing that'll happen to you. So just put yourself out there. And 9 times out of 10, most people will want to respond back. Because you did, right? I reached out toward you on LinkedIn because someone posted about your show. I want to join. And here we are.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I resonate with you. I know people see me on a podcast and the fact that I have a podcast, and I'll say I'm introverted, but they don't believe me. But that's just in this environment. Like one-on-one, I can do that all day, every day. But it still is kind of intimidating depending on like certain rooms or certain situations. And I think it just you get more comfortable the more reps you get. So I think it is important for people to kind of put themselves in those situations. And like you said, I haven't got beat up yet from, going out there and talking to somebody. You may feel a little uncomfortable or a little socially awkward, but again, you kind of overcome that the more repetitions that you get. So 2018, you start your internship. 2023, you're at Ernst & Young. But in between there, obviously, there were some steps that kind of happened between there. What was kind of that first full-time role that you got after college when you were trying to get into cybersecurity?
So my first full-time role I got was at DTCC, or Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation. So they're like a settling clearing company that works in the United States, basically. And they do stuff globally as well. So I was basically a software engineer there.
Wait,
My
what? Say that again so your
Yeah,
dad can hear
I
it
was a
loud and
soft
clear, Kenneth.
Yeah, I was a software engineer. I built business applications in Java, which I hated. It was so boring. I couldn't do it. That's why I went back to cybersecurity. Um, that and they wouldn't pay me enough money for what amount of work I was doing. Um, that's initially why I left that firm, to get a better job and better opportunity at my current employer. But yeah, that was my first job at college. I was there for about like a year and 8 months. I still have a lot of good friends there. I still speak to towards this day. So there's a lot of good people there. And overall, I'd say I enjoyed my time with them.
It was just boring.
Yeah, for being a software engineer, it was boring because we would build like these financial applications in Java. And I'm like, cause Java is like really syntax heavy. So like to declare a variable, you have to kind of write like a paragraph. I'm like, this is nonsensical. I don't want to do this.
Okay.
It was just I was like really tedious. I'm like, I don't care about this. I don't want to do this. I miss cybersecurity. At the minute I got back, I'm like, all right. I'm like, this is what I should be doing. But
Yeah.
it was hard. It was hard.
Okay. So you after that, I'm assuming you went back to your dad and you're like, see, I told you this is stupid. Like, I don't understand why somebody would do this like every day, right?
I mean, he was happy for me. He could tell that I was happier doing cybersecurity, and he just wants me to be happy, basically, and be able to take care of myself. But yeah, I told him that I'm like, I can't program every single day. That I can't be you. He kind of laughed. Um, but yeah, that's why I went back to cybersecurity. I'm really glad that I did. I mean,
Okay.
a lot of the concepts of software engineering and a lot of those overarching secure code and secure development life cycles, I'm still able to pull that into my actual day job as well. To teach people that as well. So I would say every experience I normally have, I try to take something positive away from it so I can use in the future.
Yeah, of course. That's good, man. That's real good. So after that job, or real quick, how did you land that role? Like, did you just apply like cold, or did you know somebody, or how'd you kind of land it?
I applied cold. It was really funny.
Nice.
Honestly, I didn't even want to work there. I had no idea who they were. I think I just about an interview because I'm like, I don't really want this job. So I was very relaxed. I guess they loved me. They gave me a very, very good job offer because it was funny. This was before COVID when I got the job offer. I graduated that spring of 2020. I think it was in January. Well, where was I at? I think I was even watching my car at work
Uh,
because the breaking one sold up. And they called me like, "Hey, Kenneth, this is DTCC." It was funny because I interviewed that literally that last night, and they called me the next day. I'm like, either they're gonna offer me a job or I piss somebody off. And like it's just out of happy. So I'm like, I'm probably gonna get a job offer. It's like, hey, Kenneth, we want to offer you a job. I'm like, oh, thanks. Honestly, I'm like, I don't want this
What?
job. I really did. I was like, I really don't want you guys to give me an offer. And then they tell me how much money I'd be making. I'm like, hold up. I'm like, say again. I was like, what? Because that
How
was
much was
like,
it?
it was 75K.
Okay. First job out of college,
Um,
75K.
yeah, it's before COVID, before everything went insanely expensive.
Okay.
So that was like 25K more than I expected. Um, and so, but they said I would have to move to Dallas eventually. And
Okay.
I'm like, how much money again? I'm like, that's fine. I don't care. As long as I pay for my move, which they did. Um, my parents, they cried so much.
What? They were crying?
They, yeah, cause so I'm the baby in the family, right? So for me
Same here.
moving like 9 states over, because I lived with my parents all throughout college, right? I thought I was gonna get a
Oh.
job at Publix, which I was, but they gave me a better offer and they offered me a job before I they offered me, right? So in their mind, Kansas is gonna like live in Lakeland, like 10 miles away from them. And I tell them, oh, I want to move away to Dallas. Like they freaked out. They started crying so much. I've never seen my dad cry that much. It
Oh
was
man.
I kind of laughed. I'm like, why are you guys crying so much? I'm not dying. Um, but yeah, so that was my experience with them basically.
Okay. Hey man, you breaking your parents' heart, moving halfway across the country, had another job offer right there in the backyard. You're like, nah, it's not good enough, not enough money and everything. But hey, it's understandable. You gotta do what's best for you. Um, that's interesting. I see some similarity between you and me there. Like I'm the youngest as well. Um, I didn't go to school. I didn't live at home when I went to school though. I went to San Antonio for school. I'm from Houston. My family's from Houston. But my first job was actually in Detroit. So it's like literally moving from the deep south up north, like halfway across the country or across the country, for that job. 75K was pretty good for like first entry level job. That's pretty good. So that's good. I'm glad you had that good income, good pay. Man, if I was the manager, I might have been like, wait a minute, you don't sound enthusiastic at all until we start talking about money with this role. Are you sure you even want the job? Like, oh, really? Thank you. And then, yeah, we're gonna pay you 75K. Oh, yeah, I'm ready to go, sir. Are we moving to Dallas now, or what's happening? But it is what it is. You still got some good experience, made some money there, so I think it's a good experience overall. And then, even though I think if nothing else, early in your career, it's good that you saw like, hey, you didn't want to go the software engineering route, and so you were able to like quickly identify that and then make adjustments from there.
Yeah, I definitely say so.
So cool. After that, where'd you go after that? So I'm assuming you moved to Dallas Fort Worth. That's why you moved to Dallas Fort Worth, and then you ended up getting into cybersecurity. How did that kind of happen?
So because of COVID, everything got like thrown out of whack. So my move date got postponed like 9 months. So I didn't move till like February of 2021. So I moved here, knew nobody, had no friends, had no family. It was literally just me. The first time I've been in Texas was to look for an apartment, and the second time was to move. So it was very mentally and emotionally draining at the first couple of months. I had no furniture. My table was like a stack of boxes that I had because I didn't have anything at all. So it was fun times, and that's when I really found out I really don't want to do software engineering because literally it was just me. So I just studied and I just worked for the most part. That's when I truly found out I'm like I don't want to do software engineering. So I pivoted, or I went back to cybersecurity. I asked them for a transfer, which they granted. So I went back to doing sim engineering. And then I was working basically functionally as a senior engineer, but they're paying me the pay of a junior engineer. So I asked them for a raise, right? Based off the work I was doing. They told me to kick rocks, basically. So I'm like, okay. So I started applying elsewhere. And I got a job offer within like 2 weeks that paid me like $50,000 more. I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna leave. So I started looking around again. That's how I landed my current employer. So I guess moral of the story for that is know your true value. If you're not happy at a job, look for something better, right? That's that's what I did.
Man, so you went from like a year and a half in making around 75 or a little bit more than that to getting job offers for like probably 125 or somewhere in that ballpark, 120 range, after making the switch back into cybersecurity. That's pretty impressive. What do you looking back on like your failed negotiation with them. I think it's great that you tried to negotiate your salary with them. It sucks that they didn't grant it, but it still led you to where you're at today. What would you kind of like? Are there any tips or advice that you would recommend based on your experience with negotiating or trying to negotiate your salary?
I, from the perspective of an employer you already have, right? Know your true worth. Make sure you're able to back it up with evidence, right? Or some type of metrics, right? Like I've done this amount of work. I've helped these amount of clients. Here's the value that I bring towards a firm. Then have actual documentation to back that up and actually prove it, right? Sometimes they'll give you a raise. Sometimes they won't, right? If you believe you're really undervalued, then start to look elsewhere to try to find a better position for yourself. And see what's out in the market, which is what I did. And I found out I was vastly underpaid for the amount of work I was doing, which wasn't cool with me. I had bills to pay, right? So that's why I decided to leave. And from my perspective of negotiating with a new firm, right, for a job offer, always ask for more. Don't ever accept the first offer. That's never the highest offer, 9 times out of 10. So rule of thumb for me is I always ask for at least like 10 to 20% more for whatever offer they give me, regardless of what they tell me. The worst thing they're gonna do is tell you no. If they pull the offer away, that means they're a crappy company. They don't want to work there in the first place. So that's how I look at it.
Okay, great insight, man. No, I think that's some good advice, and I definitely agree with the point. Like, if they do pull the offer away, I don't think that's somebody you wanted to work with in the first place. Just from you asking for, a higher salary, I think that's kind of ridiculous. Plus, I think if you're able to communicate, like you said, that evidence or like the justification for why you deserve more or why you're seeking more, I think any employer that like is worth their salt will at least take that in consideration and not necessarily pull the offer because you're asking for more. Maybe they'll communicate, hey, we can't do 10K more or 10% more. Maybe we can do 2% more. I negotiated my first salary at my first job that I got. I think I asked for like maybe 8K more, and I ended up getting 3K more. And so, I mean, you never know what can happen and what kind of feedback they'll get you. At what point did you start kind of getting the motivation to start thinking about creating like your own academy or helping other people transition into cybersecurity?
Initially, I never wanted to own my own business. I thought it'd be a terrible idea. It seemed like a lot of extra work I didn't want to do, which is why I was very hesitant to do it. But people kept telling me that I'm really good at teaching Splunk and cybersecurity topics. I should teach people professionally and do turn to a business. It wasn't until someone told me that, hey, Kenneth, I would actually pay you for you to do this. Until I got that kind of bug in my ear and that light bulb moment hit. And from there, we've been in business since May of 2022. That's when I started ECA. And it's been pretty good so far. We've helped a lot of people. And I guess the coolest part about it for me is I get to impact people's lives in a way that I can't from my day job. Because I do realize, right, if I left my current employer, they'll replace me within the next day, right? It's like a multi-billion dollar company. But for like ECA, I'm able to actually impact people's lives and give them an opportunity to make generational wealth and take care of their families. That means everything to me, right? Especially for people in our community, because we've been historically denied those opportunities. So like giving people that chance to actually change their lives is super important and impactful for me.
I agree 100%, man. I mean, there's nothing more impactful than, giving somebody the opportunity to double their income, triple their income, completely change their lifestyle, all those things. And also, like you said, build that generational wealth. For the people that you've kind of helped so far, what are some of their kind of backgrounds that they come from? Are they people that are already in tech and then looking to switch into cybersecurity, or are they people, completely coming from different industries, or what's kind of been the background and for the people that have been successful and kind of gone through the academy that you started?
I would say all of the above. We've had a varied assortment of different people. Some of our success stories, right? One of them is Hazel Miranda. Hazel was a graduate of UTA, or University of Texas Arlington, and she graduated with a degree in cybersecurity. But she had a lot of confidence issues, and she didn't have a lot of friends that did what she did. So her friend group didn't really understand why she was doing cybersecurity. So it was kind of hard for her to find a job, and so she was unemployed for the first 6 months after college. And then she met me. She took our program. We helped her interview, doing interview prep, and we got her a job at Samsung after about a month, I believe. So she went from making $0 because she was unemployed to making about $50,000 with benefits and stock options as a QA engineer. One other person, Courtney Wright. Courtney is actually my co-instructor and apprentice. So Courtney, initially she was pre-med, but she switched during COVID because everything got crazy. So she was an IT service technician when I met her. She went to pivot to cybersecurity. So she took my first program. She did really well with it. I saw her passion and energy. I wanted to teach her everything that I know. internship master in this area. So I made her my apprentice. 2 months after that, she got a job as a cybersecurity consultant at a company in California. And then 6 months after that, she got she got promoted and got a job at Expel, being a SOC analyst. And so she was able to triple her salary in 9 months, I believe.
That's impressive that you guys have been able to like change people's lives. I mean, you talk about tripling your salary. That think about the kind of lifestyle you can live, like especially if you were able to live on like whatever that initial income was. The extra like 2 times that is ridiculous. Especially if you're able to save that, invest that. It's all kinds of earning potential and all kinds of wealth that you can create for you and your household. So that's good that you do that. Do you guys like actually help them with landing the job themselves, or is it like primarily just a training portion, or how does that kind of work?
So it's training, cybersecurity training, mentorship, and coaching. So we'll do interview prep. We'll help them. I would say our programs are very realistic. So it helps them to actually prepare for their job, right? They're able to actually speak to a lot of different topics they'll actually touch on when they actually get their roles. And then we teach them actually techniques on how to properly study. So whatever job they get, if they use a different technology stack, compared towards what we taught them, they're able to properly learn it in a quick and efficient manner.
Okay. If there's anything like confidential, like I'm not asking you to disclose that, but like what would you say is kind of like the secret sauce? Like, because the reason I asked that is because like the first success story you mentioned, like somebody had a cybersecurity background from UT Arlington, right? So I guess like for somebody that's considering this program, maybe they have a cybersecurity background from or cybersecurity degree, or maybe they like took some other kind of certification for free. What do you think they'll kind of walk away with by doing ECA versus an alternative program?
I'll say the biggest step for us is actually caring about the people outside of the program, right? I think a lot of programs don't do. A lot of programs may just take your money, then once the program's done in 6 months after a year, they're gone and they disappear. So for us, we try to be as hands-on as possible. We try to tailor stuff towards our students to what they actually need and want. That's why all of our programs are hands-on. They're all practitioner taught, right? Everyone that is a part of ECA is actually in the field doing the work. Because it's very weird to teach someone how to build out a SOC environment or how to run a SOC team if they never actually run a SOC team, right? It's kind of weird to me that happens during college. So I guess the secret sauce is just not being a-hole, not to treating people respectfully and giving them what they paid for.
So keeping the people first, keeping the students first, and like caring about them individually. I think that's really important because, we're always talking about tech, AI, and all these other things and other platforms that we're creating. But I think it's very important to keep the people at the very center of it. And really making sure that like every decision that you're making is based on improving the outcome for them individually. So you kind of went the college route, studied management information systems, specialized in cybersecurity in college. If somebody's starting at square one, whether they're like high school, college, or maybe they're looking to pivot from a completely different field, if they come to you and they say, hey, just want to know, what are the different pathways, college, whatever, what are the different pathways that people have to getting into cybersecurity?
First, there's a bunch of different pathways. Some people will go directly from high school to college, right? And they'll get a 4-year degree and they'll try to get a job that way. Some people may take the military route, right? So the military can pay for their college and they'll get experience in the military. There's some people that are pivoting from a different career, right? So they may be an English teacher, maybe a mechanic, so they may already have a degree in something else. So they may take a boot camp program, or they may go back to college, you get a cybersecurity degree. It all really depends on what your budget is, what you're trying to do. I'd normally say towards people, if you can go to college and if you're young, I would say under like 28 or something like that, and it won't cripple you with crippling debt. If you have a scholarship or something like that, then I'd say go to college. I personally needed college for myself, right? Not from the knowledge base, because most of my cybersecurity knowledge is from on the job, right? From the perspective of personal development and meeting different people, I think college is amazing for that. But if I was like 45 and I have like kids in the family, right? Probably going to college for another 4 years doesn't make sense for me. So maybe doing an alternative program would make more sense for me. Either that or college. The college I want to go to is like $80,000, right? And I won't be in crippling debt. Doing some type of other program may make more sense, right? So it all depends on what your goals are and what your budget is.
Based on your experience, like what do you say employers kind of value the most? Is it the college degree? Is it a certification? Because I think that's something that people should kind of factor in as well. Like, hey, if you can afford a degree, I agree with you 100%. Go do it. Like, if you got the scholarships, you got the financial aid, you don't have to get in, like you said, crippling debt, go for it. But for the people that are just like, hey, I just have time to do these certifications, I don't have the budget. It's like there's these free certs. Like I know Splunk on their site, they have like some certifications you can get. There may be other certifications on like LinkedIn Learning or whatever, Udemy, Coursera, or whatever the case may be. But what do you think employers kind of value the most when kind of decide, hey, should I hire Ken or should I hire somebody else?
It depends on what the industry is. I know for a lot of financial companies, they still require a degree as one of their requirements. And then from there, it's a lot of times based off of experience and then certifications, right? You can have all certifications in the world, right? But if you're like quote unquote a paper tiger, right, and you don't know how to actually physically do any of the technology standpoint on concept that you pass in certification, right, it doesn't really matter. And they'll find that out pretty quickly in an interview, or if you're somehow lucky enough to get hired, they'll find that out within like 30 days, right? Because if I tell you to build a swamp forwarder and you've never done it before, you're sitting there after 2 weeks, like, all right, Andrew, so is a forwarder installed? And you're like, I know what you're talking about. It's not going to end well for you. We're eventually going to find that out one way or the other, right? I don't know if you can do that or not. So actually having that hands-on experience is super, super important.
Just to kind of give a little peek into like the day in the life of a cybersecurity professional. And I know there's like a lot of cybersecurity professionals, there are different roles within that. Like you mentioned, SOC analysts and other different roles that are out there. What would you say is like a typical day in the life of a cybersecurity professional? Are you like living on the computer 8 hours a day? Are you monitoring different platforms, different softwares? Like what's kind of, I guess, your experience?
It can vary from day to day, right? One day I may working as a functional architect, another day an engineer, another day an analyst. So one day I may be solutioning a new environment, and that basically means designing, getting the requirements, talking to stakeholders, making sure staff and plans are up to date for creating a new environment so they're able to manage and run that on their own eventually. Another day, I may be creating detection rules for them to make sure the environment's up and running as it should be. And if any new threats are happening, they're able to be detected on. And another day, I may be just triaging different threats and different alerts. So it can all depend just on what the day needs.
Hey, as we're getting closer to the end, I want to make sure I get you out of here in a little bit in a second. But if you had to give a pitch to somebody for why they should consider a career in cybersecurity, what would that be? And I guess you can even think about yourself, like young Ken, where you got your dad telling you about software engineering, and you're like, "Yo, that's boring, that's trash. I don't want to do it." And then you maybe weren't even aware of cybersecurity. I think a lot of people hear tech and they automatically think like engineer, but obviously there's other roles out there in IT and cybersecurity. But for the people that are curious about it, why would you kind of recommend or pitch that people consider a career in cybersecurity?
I would say every day is something new, especially for me, right? Your job can vary from day to day, especially if you're a consultant. If you like to learn, you like to try new things, and this is a field probably for you. Depending on what role you have, one role may be more, I'll say, communication based compared towards the other. I'll say communication in this field is super important. If you get good at your soft skills, and you have, let's say, good enough hard skills, you can still really stand out in this field. Again, that will depend on what role you have, right? If you're a consultant, a sales engineer, account manager, etc. I will not lie, it is hard to get inside this field. It's a lot of work, a lot of times. But for me, it's very rewarding, personally speaking. So I would say just be honest with yourself, like always, and just talk to people, watch videos, talk to people, do interviews, listen to podcasts like this one. Just go from there and make an honest assessment as to if this is the right field for you. You can make a lot of good money in this field, but it is not easy. But for me, it's been absolutely worth it. I've been able to change my life for the better in ways that I didn't imagine was possible when I was younger. So I wouldn't change anything about how I got here, basically.
On the money part, like in terms of changing your life, I know it varies. You said you had some students that like tripled their income. You had a job offer around 120 at one point. What can people kind of expect on a salary standpoint? Maybe like just getting into it, like year one, day one, and then maybe like 3 to 5 years in.
It depends on your location. I would say on average, probably between $60,000 to $80,000 to start off with in cybersecurity specifically. And then from there, depending on how quickly you level up, you can make anywhere between like 100 to 180 within like 5 years. So it's definitely possible. Just depends on your location, what specific role that you actually have.
Okay, gotcha. Last question on the cybersecurity part. If you had to recommend like one thing that people do in order to like get into the field, I know you said it can be kind of hard or challenging to get in. What would that one thing be? Would it be conferences, networking events? Would it be just focus on the search? If you had to just pick one top thing, what would it be?
I'll say networking, probably the biggest thing. Actual in-person networking and then hardware networking, right? Understanding how computers talk towards each other, and then actually talking and meeting with people and getting insights as to what they do and building those actual proper connections.
Cool, man. Nah, man, it's been a pleasure. You've been doing a heck of a job. Not bad for a Buccaneers fan. I'm really, I felt like this is a great interview. Enjoyed talking to you. I definitely want to give you the opportunity, give you the floor to kind of let people know a little bit more about the program ECA, like where they can find you, how they can check it out, how they can enroll in it, or reach out to you to ask any questions. And then also, I don't know if you have like a rolling enrollment or if it's just a set time during the year, but all that kind of information.
Yeah, so you can find us on LinkedIn. You can find us on Twitter, type in Ellington Cyber Academy, or you can follow me on LinkedIn or Twitter. Just type in my name, Kenneth Ellington. As for joining the program, we have a free training video that we mandate people to watch. Once you watch that video, it goes over what the program is, what we expect from our students and clients, and what the program actually entails. And then from there, on the actual landing page, you'll be able to book a call with us, answer some questions, and we'll get you started and see how we're able to help you.
And you said you have rolling enrollment, so like any time of the year?
Yeah, so normally we onboard people every first week of the first month. So if you met with me and we got you onboarded like last week, this month you would start that following Wednesday.
All right, good stuff. Cool. All right, man. Well, no, this has been a great episode. I really enjoyed talking to you, learn more about like the cybersecurity pathways. Also just learning more about your story. You've come a long way from, working in Publix and now being a senior cybersecurity professional and then also starting your own academy. So I think it's great that, you've built a successful career in your own right, but now you're helping others do that as well and transforming their lives. So I think that's great stuff. I appreciate you joining the show today, Kenneth.
Appreciate it, Andrew.
No problem. And then for you guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Staying tuned to the Custom Journeys podcast. As always, make sure you subscribe, like, and share this with a friend. And then we'll be back soon next week with more great content. Take care.